Sure thing. If you didn't have a chance to sign in, please raise your hand and we'll just get you right now. Lovely. Thank you, Hank. Okay. So I'm just gonna go start off real quick. My name's Sarah. I use she and they pronouns. I'm part of Ward 4.
Sarah Carpenter, she, her pronouns, and Ward 4, City Council.
I'm Helen. I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, Andrew Fronichfeld, Ward 7, he, him.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I use she, her pronouns.
My name is Alex, Ward 4, he, him.
Hi, I'm Olivia Taylor. I live in Ward 7. I'm on the steering committee and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Skunk. I live in Ward 7. I use they, them pronouns.
I'm Dan Castrogano. I use he, him pronouns. I'm running for City Council as Progressive in Ward 4.
Tricia Payne, she, her pronouns, Ward 7, and I'm one of your elected elections inspectors.
Monica Ivanchik, she, her pronouns. I live in Ward 7 and I'm your school commissioner and running for re-election.
I'm in Ward 4 and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Helen. I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Antonia, she, her pronouns.
Andrew Fronichfeld, Ward 7, he, him.
I'm Ellie. I use she, her pronouns.
My name is Alex, Ward 4, he, him.
I'm Christy and Ward 7 and I use she, her pronouns.
From behind the maple curtain in dystopian Burlington, Vermont, welcome to Disaffected, the show that talks about politics, culture, and relationships through a psychological lens. You're listening to a neighborhood planning association meeting in Burlington, that which you just heard coming in. And at this one, the candidates for city council get a chance to talk about their platforms and answer some voter questions. Except for one candidate named Evan Litwin. He didn't make the meeting, but he became a topic of conversation when an audience member alleged that he had been caught doing a racism. Those people you just heard, listen to them. Listen to this crowd with their pronoun recitations on cue and try to imagine how anyone accused of wrong think or wrong speak could ever defend themselves. Would that even be possible with these people? We've met Evan Litwin on Disaffected before, and he's, no fan of our crowd. And he doesn't think free speech is important if it strays outside the progressive lane. But we do think it's important, and just as important for our adversaries as it is for us. Later in the show, we're going to look back on our last encounter with Evan and put that next to the accusations that he's facing today from his side. I'm Joshua Slocum. It's March 2nd, 2024, and welcome to Disaffected. We've got a lot to cover. Let's go. There's a video circulating from the charity group Samaritans. They're both in the UK and the US. They may be in other countries. They're a nonprofit organization that aims to prevent suicide. They run telephone chat lines, texting chat lines for people who are in mental health crisis. And recently they put out an advertisement in the UK that has generated some split opinion. So we'll take a listen to that.
Stinks.
Do you think he's okay?
No, you should say something.
Like what?
Anything.
What if I say the wrong thing?
You won't.
What if he doesn't want me to?
What if it saves his life?
Do you know where I can get a coffee?
Start a simple conversation. You could save a life. To find out more, search Small Talk Saves Lives.
So there seem to be two camps of opinion on this. It's sad. It's a sign of our times. So the two camps are women who criticize Samaritans for putting out this ad and encouraging women to talk to strange men, which they say can be dangerous. How do we know this guy isn't going to pop off on me? And the other side is men who are pleased to see an ad that encouraged a woman to do anything positive or kind for a man in any situation, but displeased to see that effort criticized by women and feminists. It's not hard to understand the perspective from both camps here. The reason that people are split as much on this as they are is because this is the result of our loss of our high trust society in the West. Trust is gone. We are abused, we are lied to by the government and the media, and we lie to each other constantly. So we don't trust anyone. We go at each other, citizen on citizen, and we become enemies to each other, just as the elites want us to do. I'd like to see the interaction portrayed in that ad to be part of normal life again, but I don't see how it can be right now. We are alienated. We are disaffected. It's another example closer to home for me. This is video from Home Depot here in Vermont. There are 3 locations. I don't know which one this is, but it's just more evidence of our low trust society.
You fucking scumbag. You just walked out with all this shit. Hey, asshole. You're not fucking walking off with that fucking... Get the fuck. You're not fucking walking away with it, Dave. Wait. You're not fucking taking nothing, asshole. You aren't fucking taking nothing. Get the fuck out of here. I'm going. You ain't taking nothing. Drop it, you fucking piece of shit. You fucking thief! The rest of us pay the shit that we pay because of you, you fucking bag! Fucker! Come me! What the fuck? Fucking ground! Let go of me now! Get out of the fucking ground! Let go! Somebody call police! And fuck you! Let go! Fuck you! Let go! On the fucking ground!
We don't want to see that. We don't want to see citizen on citizen crime that way. Well, wait a minute. That's not the right way to say it. This guy's committing a crime, shoplifting, but we don't want to see people having to take the law into their own hands. But what else can we expect when we don't have functioning police forces in much of this country? They're all stretched thin. Most of them are demoralized. Most of them are understaffed. Defund the police during the summer of love really took off, didn't it? This is the reaction. Inflation is out of control. People are shoplifting and committing all sorts of crimes in broad daylight, and citizens have had enough. If we don't get our act together, become a civilized society again, we're going to see more of this, but we're going to see it worse. We're going to see it end in death frequently. Another article from The Guardian caught my eye. More women may be psychopaths than previously thought, says expert. And why wouldn't that catch my eye? Female psychopaths, that's my hobby. We've talked before about how people often miss the reality of abusive women simply because they're women. There's a demonstrated psychological effect called the women are wonderful effect that shows that women get more sympathy and empathy in situations when they do the same actions as a man than the man would get. And both women and men find the woman more sympathetic. It's been demonstrated over and over again. I mean, look, we've got thousands, at least thousands of mothers in this country literally, chemically, and surgically castrating their children and calling it love, calling it gender-affirming care, calling it being a wonderful mother, when it is clearly abuse and butchery. And it's clearly Munchausen syndrome by proxy. I submit to you that had the transing fad of children started with men, people would have seen immediately what kind of depravity that was. I think it got through because it was mommies doing it. But in this article, The Guardian talked to Professor Clive Boddy, who's at Anglia Ruskin University in the UK, and he does work teaching people about psychopaths in the corporate sphere, in the business world, in an attempt to get people to understand that psychopaths are that's not a synonym for murderer or serial killer. He's also interested in the fact that people who are high in psychopathic traits but not necessarily fully diagnosable are still dangerous. Let me give you a little bit from the article. When it comes to a typical psychopath, the suited and booted Patrick Bateman from the novel American Psycho might spring to mind. But according to one expert, the number of women with the neuropsychiatric disorder could be far greater than previously thought. Psychopaths are generally considered to lack empathy and guilt, exhibit antisocial behavior, lie frequently, and be ruthless, narcissistic, and manipulative. Quote, psychopaths are after money, power and control, said Dr. Clive Boddy, who is an expert on psychopaths in the corporate world. And he thinks that we are missing most female psychopaths. Well, I've got a quote for your screen here. The behavior of female psychopaths seems to be subtle enough and less obvious than male psychopaths, and therefore not recognized as much. Continuing, a small but mounting body of evidence describes female psychopaths as prone to expressing violence verbally rather than physically, with the violence being of a relational and emotional nature, more subtle and less obvious than that expressed by male psychopaths. It's Clive Boddy. We know that women wound emotionally more than they wound physically. So this tracks with reality. It also makes me think of how many people have a high dose of cluster B traits from all of the allegedly 4 separate disorders. Much of what has been described and what a lot of people in the know would see as only borderline personality disorder in women often looks like it has some sociopathic or psychopathic elements to it, to me. I saw this in my own mother, which is why I've described her before as having secondary psychopathic traits. I don't think my mother is a global psychopath. She has some empathy and some access to conscience, but it's inconsistent and unstable. And I've seen this in a lot of other people too. Another quote. There had also been fewer studies looking at psychopathy in women than in men, Boddy said, and assessors may be reluctant to label women as psychopaths. Some estimates have suggested that there could be a 10-to-1 ratio of male to female psychopaths, but Boddy's work, using only the first part of a scale to measure psychopathy, suggested the figures were very different. Then he says, it's almost 1-to-1. Boddy said, although he noted large-scale studies of randomly chosen adults would be needed to get a more definitive picture. And this part here is especially interesting. Quote, estimates using the scale suggest that there are about 23% of men who, although they're not categorically psychopathic, have enough of the traits to be problematic for society. Yikes. Also tracks with what I've observed. I've actually spoken to some mental health professionals about this. Some of them think that the number of these people is even higher in society than I do. One final quote here. Boddy's own research, based on surveys of white-collar workers, suggested such traits were not uncommon in females. Around 12 to 13% of females have enough of these traits to be potentially problematic, he said. Look out. It's what we've talked about on this show for a long time. We've got an update on a story we talked to you about last week. The unfortunate young woman, the 16-year-old Dagny Benedict, who died the day after having a fight in her high school bathroom in Oklahoma. So we told you about her last week, and her name was Dagny Benedict, but of course everyone is calling her Nex Benedict because that's her non-binary name, and they bullied her mother actually into promising to inscribe that fake name on her tombstone. Contrary to media reports, Dagny Benedict started the physical fight with the girls that she was fighting with. And she did not appear to be badly beaten when we watched her on video the way she claimed to be. Can't know for sure, but she seemed a lot more coherent than the media reports would have suggested for somebody who allegedly got the tar beat out of them. She died the day after this incident, and we don't know why. All we know from the initial release of the autopsy report, not complete, was that the coroner said she did not die from trauma. So we don't know why she died. They're waiting on toxicology reports. But reality hasn't mattered in this society for years. Activists in the media are still fanning the flames of the poor, oppressed, genderqueer girl who got killed just for being herself. Here's a sampling of that I've seen this week. Remember, this is all coming out after we learned from the autopsy that she did not die from trauma. This is known. So all the things you're going to see now are coming after that knowledge is already public. So here's NBC News Their teaser headline, 16-year-old Nex Benedict, who died the day after a school fight, is remembered by friends as a talented artist and fiery kid who would, quote, jump to defend any of his friends if they were getting picked on. Wait, his? Yep. Apparently, Dagny's sex is changing by the day and by the hour and by the person speaking. When I tried to click on that story, you see that thing on your screen there, that headline? I went to click on that so that I could get the full story. This is what popped up on my screen over the story. I couldn't even get to the story because I had to get their promo of some kind of freak split screen drag queen image that looks like an even more horrifying version of the cover of whatever happened to Baby Jane. And it says, their little promo, NBC News, culture, tea. Tea as in TEA. Spill the tea, girl, spill the tea. You know, because all things queer are all things gay or all things drag or all sassy black woman and drag queen, right? They're hipping with it. Here's what Out News had to say about this. Friends remember Nex Benedict, Oklahoma student who died after a school fight, as fiery kid. Police video showed Nex Benedict saying 3 students jumped him after he threw water on them. Oh, I'm sorry. Because they were bullying him and his friend. The next day, Nex was dead. They keep calling Dagny him, and they deliberately leave out that Dagny Benedict admitted on camera to a cop that she shoved one of the girls into a paper towel dispenser. She poured water on the girl because she didn't like how she was being made fun of. She initiated the physical altercation. But like somebody we're going to talk about at the end of the show, Nex Benedict must be made into a martyr. Nobody's going to stop that narrative. But some of Dagny's friends might be telling on her inadvertently, even though they don't know it. One kid who gave his name only as, yeah, believe it or not, Ally, A-L-L-Y, Ally. Yeah, it could be Allie, but no, it's Ally. Gave only that name and supplied they, them pronouns to Out News, said this, quote, they were always someone who was never afraid to be who they are, Ally said. It was like wherever they went, you were going to accept them. And if you didn't, that was your problem. And they were going to make it your problem. They were very confrontational. Were they indeed? And of course, we have the usual amateur iconography on social media. Here's one. Rest in power, Nex. Here's another. Nex Benedict should be alive. Protect trans kids. Protect two-spirit kids. And here is some video from a memorial vigil for Dagny Benedict.
We told them that if they continue this rhetoric of hate, this rhetoric of division, and this rhetoric of targeting vulnerable populations, that it would result in body bags. And I am devastated to tell you that we were right. But everybody is watching. From Washington, D.C. to Washington State, there are vigils, there are marches, and everybody is getting active because Oklahoma has been the testing ground for the MAGA extremist legislation. That's right! But this legislation is spreading like wildfire. And it is at the top of our leadership. Governor Stitt wants to be a top 10 state, but all I see right now is top 10 hate.
Bottom 10 just about.
Brian Walters and Haya Rychek talking about all these groomers and pedophiles that don't exist while they let actual groomers and pedophiles. Stopping there. Haya Rychek, you gotta go back to New York. And we want a full investigation of what happened in that bathroom in the days after.
This is a Klan rally, a cult revival meeting, a Nazi rally. And no, I'm not saying that for rhetorical effect. I don't mean it hyperbolically. I mean it literally. If you are normal and sane, these people want you dead. They want you dead. They want Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok dead. They blame her and they blame others for a death that no one else caused, so that their people are seen, so that the people they target, normal people, are seen as morally unworthy of societal protection, morally unworthy of being allowed to stay alive. They want a full investigation, do they? Do these people seriously think investigators are going to turn up Chaya Raichik in the bathroom with a candlestick? I'm sorry. You have to laugh at this stuff. It's grisly, but you have to laugh. It's pure narcissistic, satanic inversion of the truth. And to our collective danger, it's working. All right, we are coming up on a break, but we would love to ask for your support before we go and see you on the other side. There's a couple of ways to support us. If you'd like to become a subscribing member and get access to our Discord chat, our private server, sign up at disaffectedpod.substack.com or at subscribestar.com/disaffected. If you don't want to subscribe on a monthly basis and you just want to throw a few pennies into the pot, that's very much appreciated too. Simply go to disaffected.com and click on Support Us. We'll see you after the break.
Can't get enough of our love, baby? That's because you're not subscribed. Move that thumb over to the great big old subscribe button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We put out audio-only exclusive content that you won't get on any other video platform, so make sure you subscribe today.
Welcome back. Evan Litwin is a local man running for Burlington City Council, and you may remember him from one of our episodes from last year. We covered the Burlington Pride Parade, at which a crowd poured coffee on Fred Sargent, grabbed his sign, and pushed him to the ground. Fred Sargent, at that time 74 years old, is one of the original gay men at the actual Stonewall riots in Greenwich Village in 1969, one of the actual and literal founders of the modern gay liberation movement. In the background of the Burlington Pride event, our friend of the show, Christopher Felker, videotaped a conversation between himself and Evan. And in case you don't remember, here's a quick refresher.
Well known to share similar types of anti-trans views, so that's what was so surprising to me.
We can sniff each other
on all the whole street, you just happen to be there in that moment, recording. I think it's a stunt that you guys have worked.
I did not plan it.
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, I mean, you think the worst in people, my friend, and maybe you should do better.
I don't think the worst in people, but I can always sniff out a bullshit story.
Can you, Evan? Now, Evan, of course, is running for city council in Burlington with the promise that he will respect others who hold opinions that differ from his own. In his speech to the Democrats' nominating caucus, Mr. Litwin boasts of the importance of making sure people with diverse opinions all get a seat at the table.
And so if you elect me, you can expect the following: a commitment to take public trust seriously and to a high standard of ethics, accountability for our public servants and also for ourselves as community members, respect for the rights of others to hold beliefs and opinions that differ from mine. I have always and will continue to stand up to all forms of hate and discrimination, and I am committed to a city that centers inclusivity and where we ensure diverse voices are engaged, heard, and seated at the table. Welcoming the help of expertise of others, including those with different lived experience than mine, to inform the work at hand.
Evan has said multiple times in speeches and interviews on radio just how important it is for everyone to remain engaged in our democracy. But let's listen to him in his own words in a candid setting, describing just how much he really does value diverse opinions and just how much he does value involving those who disagree with him in the political process and how much he really does want them to have a seat at the table.
Supporting people and cheering for people and sending positive
What do you think I'm doing?
It's my understanding that you're with this guy.
Nope, this is Fred Sargent. I met him here.
Complicated message. I don't even understand.
Well, maybe you should talk to him about it. But I witnessed him being assaulted on 2 different occasions, so I pulled out my camera and started recording.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
You have the right to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't believe that you're doing anything positive. But
Really? Well, representation matters.
what are you representing?
Gay Republicans. Don't you see the pin?
Okay. Is that what?
You know what?
It's quite
send me an
obtuse.
email. I'm missing the parade having to cater to your conversation.
I don't want to send you an email. I just want you to stop running for office.
No.
Burlington's never going to elect you.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's never going to happen.
We'll see.
We will see, and it will continue to not happen. Stop bothering people.
No.
Stop doing negative publicity stunts. I just think, here's the thing. You're going to run for office again, and the same thing is going to happen.
Sure.
We're going to say, we don't really want that.
Yeah,
we don't want
we're still
that
gonna talk about it.
representation.
We're still going to talk about it.
It's just, aren't you embarrassed?
Not one bit. Well, maybe you should reflect upon and sort out that internalized shame that you have.
I don't have any internalized
Well,
shame.
it seems like it.
It seems that you are projecting that.
No, I'm not, because I have no
believe
shame.
that if you want to represent the people of Burlington, it should be all the people of Burlington.
I do represent all the people in Burlington.
Well, some of the viewpoints you shared, I would say that would be difficult for you to do.
I disagree.
Well, I hope you're not planning on running again.
Well, we've already discussed this 3 times during the same conversation.
Okay.
I will.
Okay. You really are not cut out to represent the people of Burlington.
Oh,
so when you speak like that to people, there's nothing to see. You're never going to get elected.
Yeah. Okay.
Literally never going to happen.
I just want you to stop running for office. As you can clearly see, Evan supports free speech broadly, and he definitely wants everybody with diverse opinions to have a seat at the political table. This behavior, this is the real face of people like this. It's egotistical. He takes the opportunity to stop Christopher Felker on the street at the Pride Parade and dress him down for being concerned about Fred Sargent being assaulted, which he pretends he's not sure really happened. He's sure. He knows it happened. This is conscious lying. Then he contradicts himself. And when he's on the political campaign trail, he talks about how much he loves democracy and respecting diverse opinions and making sure nobody's voice is silenced. People like this, they lie. Tactical lies that they deploy in the moment. The only thing they're serving is their objective in the moment. If it changes 180 degrees in the next moment, so be it. Now, let's bring you up to today, to 2024. We're going to show you some video from a neighborhood planning association meeting. Burlington has so many goddamn committees you can't imagine. There's a committee to make committee hearings. It's ridiculous. Everything has a committee or an association. But this is more from what we teased you with at the beginning of the show with the pronouns. As it turns out, this candidate forum meeting at the Neighborhood Planning Association was where city council city council candidates were asked to pitch themselves to the residents and to the voters, but it didn't go very well for Evan, and conveniently, he wasn't in attendance that evening. And as always happens with the mob, the left starts to eat its own.
Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we'll pick up our question here. And then was there anyone else who had their hand up? And back there and over here. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. This question is in regards to Evan. I know he couldn't really join us tonight, but hoping maybe his representative here can help us out. So recently, allegations have been made that that regarding his candidacy, he's running in Ward 7 and apparently said, quote, a hard R N-word involved in such a super racist manner, acting like he was black vocally.
Just so you know, Olivia is not his representative.
Okay.
So there's nobody who can answer that question. I don't want to waste your time because you're not going to email you.
My apologies.
I'm not.
Yeah, but we can provide his email for you.
He can ask the question. The candidate's not here is their problem. He deserves to ask his question.
Yeah, I'm just letting him know that I can't.
My apologies for assuming you were his representative. That's on me. My apologies. Where was it? Right. So recently, like I said, allegations have been made that he was said, quote, a hard R N-word involved in such a super racist manner, acting like he was black vocally. I asked candidates here tonight, is this sort of behavior acceptable for our representatives? And how can we possibly hope to foster a community free of hate when these are the people who represent us?
And who said that?
Evan.
Evan.
You said it's an allegation.
It's an allegation. I don't want to say that I come here with hard evidence of such thing.
I don't know what this means.
I don't know if you caught that, but he was smirking, that teenage kid. He comes in with an unsourced allegation. He knows what he's doing, and he's enjoying himself. But what exactly does this quote mean? We transcribed it. Take a look at it on your screen. I'll read it again to you. A hard R N-word involved in such a super racist manner, acting like he was black vocally. Now, that's a little bit difficult to parse. You can look at it a couple of different ways. Is the accusation just that Evan said the N-word? And yes, I resent the fact that I'm saying the N-word because we've made it into a magical incantation with outsized power. Is the accusation just that he said the N-word, or are they also saying that Evan was affecting a black vocal accent? I'm not sure. But notice that almost everyone here treats the allegation as if it's been proven. Then they toss the question to the candidates again, as if it were proven and a controversial matter. Let's take a listen to this.
He asked the candidate the question.
Not answer.
All of them. Are there any candidates who would like to respond? The question was, sorry, I can just repeat the question, which was, is this type of behavior acceptable to build a world of peace?
And what would you do to mitigate hate? Is that the second part?
What will you do to mitigate hate if you are elected or in your current positions?
And what would you do to mitigate the hate? Is that the second part? Oh, stop it, bitch. You wrote that yourself. Of course, these people use the opportunity to bastardize the question to their own liking and insert their own questions into it, their own moral statements, actually. Give all the candidates a chance to pile on Evan while he's not there and to virtue signal. Take it. Listen.
No hate words are acceptable. Do things like that happen sometimes, but we up as a model for the community.
Thank you for the question. I mean, I think it's a pretty simple concept that it's never acceptable for a white person to say the N-word. Full stop. For years, I have worked very hard with the BIPOC community, educating myself, deconstructing my own whiteness, and learning what it is to be a good ally. If you Google search me, you will see I have put my money where my mouth is. I put my freedom on the line to stand up for BIPOC people. I won that court case. Just Google me, you'll be able to find it. You probably already heard about it. So I think my record is clear.
I think that kind of behavior is not acceptable, especially for our elected officials. And for anybody as neighbors and people that respect each other, no matter what our political beliefs are or religious beliefs. And I think we need to be examples for each other, good behavior, to point out when we hear hateful speech. When things like that happen, perhaps use restorative practices or the community justice system to resolve these issues.
Is that what you think, Mommy, about good behavior? That's Monica Ivanchik, I think is how her name is pronounced. She's the school commissioner, naturally. Now, I don't like Evan, obviously. Because despite what he says, he doesn't actually respect his political adversaries. He doesn't respect the right of those who disagree with progressive liturgy to express their views. Look at the way he treated Christopher Felker. But Evan, too, is entitled to free speech, and he is entitled to his political views. Why are the council candidates talking as if they have the right to do something about something Evan said that they don't even know he said? They just have an allegation, but they couldn't resist chomping on it like crocodiles. It's red meat. What exactly are they going to do? What do you think you're allowed to do? Why are they running with this based on a rumor brought to the meeting by a teenager? And again, I couldn't quite parse that quote, but one interpretation, what if it's that somebody heard Evan vocally sound like a black person? Well, you know, there are a lot of gay men who will put on that black female vocal affect for performative humor. It's extraordinarily common. I've known few gay men who haven't done it at least once. So if that's going to be your purity test, you better well, of course you want to get rid of them all. Get cis white gay men. They're so oppressive. And what if he did say the N-word with a hard R? Just listen to how picayune that is. Assigning moral judgment based on phonetic pronunciation of a bad word, it's absurd. The crowd didn't even ask if he hurled that word at a black person because they don't care about actually abusive behavior. They only care about the appearance of religious rectitude in their ranks. Here's what they'd like to see done and what they think they have the right as politicians to do.
When you're talking about this, it reminds me of an incident that happened a few years back, maybe 3 years ago, on the bike path right by Letty Park. There were some young teenagers that heckled some older people, and that word spread through Front Porch Forum. And my city councilor, Ali Jang, took it onto himself to go seek out those teenagers. He figured out who they were, and he made sure that there was restorative sessions that happened with these kids. And I would hope that any elected official would be willing to go to that extent to get rid of hate in our community. So only love will outdo hate.
Only love will outdo hate. God, it's like, oh, who's that chick? What's her name, Kevin, from last week? Kim Jordan, who said, I don't remember what it was. Something very much like that, you know. It was even cheesier than love will conquer hate. So Monica here thinks it's correct and righteous for an elected official to seek out private citizens, these teenagers she tells in the story, based on a rumor of what they said to some other people or how they treated some other people, and, quote, mitigate the hate through community restorative justice. Just exactly what is that? You know, if it were 40 years ago and I heard a story like that, I heard a story that some teenagers were getting handsy or mouthy with some older people, and that a town selectman decided to come along and have a come to Jesus meeting with those boys, I probably would agree and say, you know what? That's the kind of adult mentorship I want to see. That's the kind of discipline I want to see. But I don't trust these people in 2024. I don't trust them to evaluate that these boys were even in the wrong. I don't even know what the details are of it. I certainly don't trust them to mitigate the hate, nor do I trust them to mete out reparative or restorative justice. Do you? It reminds me, we covered this on the show a while ago. One of the public school teachers at a meeting we were at was talking about how the school needed to start monitoring the personal social media accounts of all the students to see what they said outside of school. And nobody batted an eye. They all acted like it was normal. If I could speak to Evan Litwin, I would say to him, look at these people and look at what they are doing to you. Look at what they are willing to do to you. But, of course, being one of them, you know how much farther they will go because you'll go there too. Take a look at this on your screen. This is a Facebook post from Evan Litwin. I'll read it. I hope nothing terrible happens to this person's car parked in a driveway on North Avenue near the Beltline. That would be awful. And for those of you just listening, it's a picture of Bill Oetjen's car. Friend of the show. And it says in the back window, he has a sign that says, J.K. Rowling was right. J.K. Rowling is the author of the Harry Potter series. She's been demonized all over Britain because she knows that women are women and men are men, and that so-called trans women are men who don't belong in women's locker rooms. So she's been called a murderess, a traitress, a TERF, all sorts of evil things. So Evan would like to see somebody do something to Bill's car, and he's willing to take a picture of it and put it on Facebook we blurred the license plate. Evan didn't. There's a follow-up to that on Facebook. One of his friends says, oh, I miss you too. I don't usually like trash on the curb, but I hope it gets taken care of. And Evan replies, I have contractors for that, winky smiley face. How does it feel, Evan, to be mobbed and struggle sessioned in absentia, painted as a racist because of nothing more than the unsourced accusation of a teenage boy? You've spent the better part of a decade impugning the character and moral reputation of other people. You yourself, Evan, have acted as part of this mob, and now you find yourself getting under their boot. How does it feel to be the one wearing the scarlet letter? You know, I used to be part of the authoritarian left, but I'm not anymore. And Evan, you don't have to be part of them anymore either. Those people like Christopher Felker, people like Bill Oetjen, people like me, people like Kevin Hurley. 3 of us being gay men, by the way. Those that you think of as enemies of everything good and right in the world would actually be better and more respectful friends to you than your crowd is being to you. Have you thought about joining us? All right. After the break, we're going to close up the show by talking about Aaron Bushnell, the Air Force man who set himself on fire to protest Israel this week. And I think our take might be a little different than what you're seeing in the news. Come see us after the break.
Can't get enough of our love, baby? That's because you're not subscribed. Move that thumb over to the great big old subscribe button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We put out audio-only exclusive content that you won't get on any other video platform, so make sure you subscribe today.
Probably heard of the 25-year-old Air Force serviceman Aaron Bushnell, who set himself on fire in front of the Israel embassy in Washington, D.C. this week. We'll put a picture of that on there. We're not going to run the video. These are some of his last words. My name is Aaron Bushnell. I'm an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an act of extreme protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. Now, after he lit himself on fire in front of his live streaming camera, Bushnell yelled, "Free Palestine," repeatedly until he collapsed and was put out with fire extinguishers and then died shortly thereafter. Now, according to the New York Post, this is fog of war level stuff here. So I don't know how the information is going to change, but according to the New York Post, Aaron Bushnell was raised in a cult-like Christian community on Cape Cod called the Community of Jesus. And some former members claim the church was abusive. As an example, the CBS source said members have been publicly disciplined by being put in the middle of a circle as others scream at you about something you did and making you feel like the worst person on earth. That's quoted in the New York Post. Another former member named Carrie Buddington told CBS News that the group, the Community of Jesus, was controlling and abusive. She said, quote, after she left the community about 10 years ago, after being forced to give up her baby daughter for 3 years in the 1980s because other members thought the child cried too much. She says, I would go and pick her up to comfort her and sit in the rocking chair with her, and the head of the house would come and yell at me for being soft on her, Buddington claimed. Now, a church representative denies these allegations. But if they're true, they would go some way to explaining Aaron Bushnell's mental torment. Here's another quote. Another former member in the 1980s, Bonnie Zampino, 54 now, told the Washington Post, a lot of us that got out are very much into social justice, trying to defend those who don't or can't defend themselves, because that is what we went through, end quote. Now, that's a common path for a lot of us who have child abuse in our backgrounds. We get into social justice. It happened to me. You want to save others from people you believe are predators. But many of us end up mistaking decent people for predators and ignoring the fact that the entire social justice crowd around us is in fact full of predators. This week, I have been really disturbed by the zealous, approving response of the social justice set to Aaron Bushnell's public suicide. They are calling him a righteous martyr because it's convenient for their pro-Hamas political goals. Now, I'm not going to litigate this here. It doesn't actually matter whether you, listener and viewer, whether you think Hamas or Israel is the greater villain in this conflict. It doesn't matter whether you think Aaron Bushnell's politics or his cause was right or wrong for the purposes of what I want to talk about here. Only a severely mentally disturbed person kills himself in public this way. It's not martyrdom. I'm going to do a little more detail in a few minutes. Here's something that's purporting to be a social media post from Aaron Bushnell. Again, I can't verify it, but I've seen it enough that I think it's reasonably possible. It's impossible to tell, of course, what's real and what's not, and social media sites start immediately scrubbing unflattering evidence as soon as a leftist figure becomes controversial. But I'll read it out to you. It says, hey, so I am not Palestinian, and I'm in no position to endorse or condemn Hamas's actions. That being said, neither are most people, and there are a lot of very confidently ignorant opinions being thrown around. There are no Israeli civilians or tourists who have no part in the oppression of Palestine. That idea doesn't make any sense and betrays a lack of understanding of what the oppression of Palestine even is. Israel is a settler, colonialist, apartheid state. All of its residents or their immediate forebears have moved there specifically to settle on stolen land. Are you hearing, audience, are you hearing all of these progressive buzzwords? Land whose people are being cornered and cleansed just a few miles away, right next door in the case of the West Bank. There are no Israelis without the genocide of the Palestinian people. To bring this into stark relief, there is the example of the music festival, which liberal states in the media have made such a point of clutching their pearls over. A music festival? How could it get more innocent than a music festival? That music festival was happening just 3 miles from Gaza within sight of the border wall. Imagine a similar event happening in the early days of the colonization of North America. Can you or I really say that indigenous people are wrong for retaliating against colonizers who are rubbing their domination in their face? If these are his words, Aaron Bushnell would have us believe that innocent civilians don't exist. They're all colonizers and oppressors, and therefore it is okay to rape them and murder them in cold blood. It's astonishing to have to say this, but that is not a compassionate or humanitarian statement. Here's what some well-known hard-left figures have been saying about this suicide. First, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Quote, "It's obviously a terrible tragedy, but I think it speaks to the depths of despair so many people are feeling about the horrific humanitarian disaster taking place in Gaza, and I share those deep concerns. Children are starving. People are dying. 29,000 Palestinians have died, 2/3 of them women and children. The United States has got to stand up to Netanyahu and make sure this does not continue." That's according to Newsweek magazine. Quite opportunistic, Bernie, thank you very much. As if it were simply normal to set yourself on fire in public and kill yourself because you're feeling despair about a war. Here's Cornel West, professor of philosophy and Christian practice at Union Theological Seminary. Quote, "Let us never forget the extraordinary courage and commitment of brother Aaron Bushnell, who died for truth and justice. I pray for his precious loved ones. Let us rededicate ourselves to genuine solidarity with Palestinians undergoing genocidal attacks in real time." Yes, that is, in fact, Cornel West saying that suicide is courageous. Here are some social media thoughts. Looks like a cover of some kind of cheap paperback thriller from 1981. "I will no longer be complicit in genocide. Free Palestine," with a picture of Aaron Bushnell standing there with his uniform on fire. Here's another one. "Listen, American pilots are protesting in front of the Israeli embassy. This is the Aaron Bushnell movement, and it's growing," with a fire emoji. Here's more of the Aaron Bushnell movement. Suleiman Ahmed says, "I will no longer be complicit in genocide. Rest in peace, Aaron Bushnell." But the most chilling thing I've read about this has come from hard-left journalist Caitlin Johnstone. She's very popular on the woke left. She's got 362,000 followers on Twitter and more than 10,000 Substack subscribers. Here's the first part of her tweet, and I'm going to read you some excerpts. It's so long, I'm not going to read the whole thing. She says, "One of the main reasons the self-immolation of Aaron Bushnell is having such an earth-shaking impact on our society is because it's the single most profound act of sincerity that any of us have ever witnessed." More. "And then, out of nowhere, some Air Force guy comes along and does something real. Something as authentic and sincere as anything could possibly be with the very noblest of intentions. We're not really living in the same world as we were living in before Aaron Bushnell lit himself on fire at 1 p.m. on February 25th. It was far too sincere an act committed in the least sincere city on the planet. It shook things around far too much for all the pieces to fit fully back into place. I, myself, am permanently changed. I find myself reapproaching the Gaza genocide with fresh eyes, renewed vigor, and invincible determination. I now write with a different kind of fire in my guts. Where previously we'd begun seeing the opposition to the incineration of Gaza beginning to lose a bit of energy due to despair and how hard it is to keep something energized for months on end, we are now seeing electrifying enthusiasm. You know, forgive me for suspecting that Caitlin and those like her are getting something very close to erotic satisfaction out of this tragedy. She goes on. With his profound act of sincerity, Aaron Bushnell extended to the world an invitation to a very different way of looking at life, an invitation to pierce through the veil of superficiality and narcissism, to a radical authenticity and a deep compassion for our fellow human beings, to a profound sincerity of our own with which we can shake the world awake in our own unique ways. Well, psychologist J.D. Haltigan's view of this is much closer to mine than Caitlin's is, and he says, it is the ultimate borderline strategy, a threat of final abandonment carried out, splitting and alternate displays of incompatible negative affect, a maximal narcissistic self-spectacle in which the person remains in control of their own implosion, psychopathological petulance. Indeed, burning yourself alive on camera is an expression of severe trauma. And basically, all 4 cluster B personality disorders. You could make an argument for any of them. It doesn't matter what cause it's for, because it isn't really for a cause outside of the person himself. This behavior comes from severe psychological disturbance, and adults need to be able to recognize this for their own good and for the good of the people around them. People who commit suicide, especially this aggressively, do not become saints, secular or spiritual. They have not displayed an act of selfless devotion. Please don't mistake me about this. Those who are suicidal are indeed suffering. I have been there. I've known many people who have been there. The suffering is real. Aaron Bushnell was obviously suffering in the extreme. But he is not the only one, and people like this are not the only ones suffering. And they are not excused from moral judgment for the suffering that they cause to the rest of us that they leave behind. And those who kill themselves dramatically this way, or publicly, or in a messy way that will forever scar their loved ones who have to discover their dead bodies, have committed an extreme and immoral assault on other people. Aaron Bushnell's suicide was a blind act of narcissistic rage. It was a fuck you to the world, to his family, to his friends, and everyone who cared about him. It was evil. Thanks for listening and watching. Good night. We'll see you next week.